Hello, and welcome to Wrestling with Poetry, Kalamazoo, Michigan's premier wrestling and poetry podcast. Today, as promised, we'll talk about moves in poetry and moves in wrestling. But first and foremost, today is the day we hear the poetry of Ian Brand. Ian Brand's poems have appeared in numerous publications, including the Manhattan Review, American Letters and Commentary, Third Coast, and Poet Lore. Ian has also written 2 chapbooks, A Brief Bio of the Stick Figure, Pudding House 2007, and The Ransacked Planetarium, Pudding House 2009, both nominated for a Pushcart Prize. He is also an accomplished musician. One small note to enhance the pleasure of your listening. Musician Lester Young's nickname was Prez, and Billy refers to Billie Holiday.
Agenda item. The rain's agenda. Our unyielding impermanence. Though nothing slips through this gauzy downpour save surprise comebacks of light. Seed operas teetering on the most filamentous notion. Hours telescope down to the storied lifetime of the dayfly. The sun everywhere like smiles swiped and given back to these statues. No matter. The gnomic scrawl of trees articulating themselves past the point of your concentration. No matter the branches have netted a half moon, half a solitary headstone riven by lightning. Though every stone that memorializes the dead or darkened windows our very eyesight dares not yet see us through, while the vanishing haul their shadows in wheelbarrows through a stand of white pines. Ahab's Church. The violin feeding its one green melody through the needle's eye is how all good songs enter the afterlife. The vistas keep their shape. Holy cities carve themselves out of the fog. The vaulted rafters of sun-bleached bone will be our church, our universal loss squinting out through the Leviathan's rib cage. You spy the lemon sun. Love is. Love is that old blue junk shop of the moon still open after everything else on earth has perished. But for now, hands couple like spiders up and up into the noise of joy, their bright togetherness a massacre of solitude. 2 paper boats folded from the deeds of 2 empty houses. The ocean's endless unfurling decree. Paper hulls of poems swelling with exotic silences. Billy and Prez. According to the painter and synesthete Kandinsky, the color yellow sounds like a trumpet. Evening, 1955. Walking on 6th Avenue, Billy and Prez feel the moon dissolving inside them like a minor 9 chord. Everyone is born dying, more or less, though the dawn is no less alive with yellow birds. The reappearance. Learning to breathe again, I respirate like a flower, stranger to the index of 10 million mouths of light, friend to the solitary wonder-struck leaf, the night almost gone, paint tasters, teal blue lips and raisin eyes of gold. Follow the fuse back to the birthday cake. Go to the mirror and drink in your absence until you appear.
Thank you, Ian Brand. That was absolutely phenomenal. Thoughts about poetry moves or devices. I believe that they are communal property, to be used freely and by all. By device, I mean forms like sonnet, haiku, apologies, elegies, etc. We don't even know exactly where each device is from. Consider Petrarch. He did not invent the sonnet that bears his name. He just did the hell out of it. It was said to be invented by a poet and notary by the name of Giacomo da Lentini, but even that is a speculation. These rhyme schemes and forms are only a means to an end, the end being connection and participation in an ongoing conversation about experience and feeling. With poems, we can talk to each other through time. These are like letters to the future or letters to the future among us. And I think using people's lines is fine as long as the line is attributed to the person who wrote it. Why deny the poet this joy? In my experience as a poet, there are long silent periods, like where nobody wants to publish your work and you can't get a reading and you put in your own reading and nobody shows up. That sort of thing is common. Therefore, if you use an obscure poet's work cited, it will make that poet happy. And if you don't, it is really bad luck. Okay, so I looked up some forms that I thought would be productive to explore. Episopesis. Episopesis. When you suddenly break off your speech, when you are overwhelmed or there is no language for the feeling. This was done in the Bible and in the Aeneid. Robert Creeley and Robert Duncan did it, as well as Emily Dickinson. There is the Beast Epic. This is where the main characters are animals, and they have many adventures. You speak for the animals as the animal. Reynard the Fox from the late Middle Ages to early French satires and the comic strip Pogo. And then you have Art Spiegelman's Mouse. These are all the Beast Epic in living form. Another device that interests me is a reworking of the Carmen Figuratum, which is a shaped poem. Consider George Herbert's Easter Wings, where it looks like what it is talking about. It is proto-concrete poetry. Actual concrete poetry takes it a step forward, where the words can be more general shapes, and that new strange shape is part of the meaning. Probably these devices influenced each other. One can combine all three of these. Matter of fact, listeners, I set that challenge to you. Write a concrete poetry beast epic with gestures of necessary speechlessness, and you could read them and describe them on the show. I might write one myself. Now I want to pivot the topic of ego and wrestling moves. Ego is basically just signing your move. Is it ego? Often you'll have somebody sign off on a move that they didn't invent. Here I'm going to talk about the mandible claw, which was invented by Sam Shepard, the surgeon accused of murdering his wife, who became a pro wrestler. In this move, you grip inside the opponent's mouth. Mick Foley took that move and made it his finishing move. He made people fear it. And now, the wrestler Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, is using it. Dr. Britt Baker is a wrestler who is also a real-life dentist. She has lately been playing the heel. She calls it the lockjaw and uses it in combination with a hold called the Rings of Saturn, which twists the arm back. Rings of Saturn is named after the great wrestler Perry Saturn. Another move that has been evolving through the wrestlers who use it is the DDT. DDT stands for many things. Downward dome thrust or drape drop takedown. It was popularized by Jake the Snake Roberts, but it was invented by the Mexican wrestler Black Gordman, who was a luchador in the 1970s. In a DDT, you get your opponent into an inverted headlock and then intentionally fall down backwards to drive the opponent's head into the mat. Who is doing the DDT now? Jon Moxley. Finally, there is the super kick. Simple, elegant super kick. It's a very powerful sidekick. Chris Adams, a wrestler known as the Gentleman, is considered the first wrestler to use the super kick. Chris also initiated the super kicks from the top turnbuckle. This caught on in Japan, and the Japanese wrestler, the great Kabuki, would use it as a finisher, but he called it the thrust kick. Finally, Shawn Michaels made it his own by calling it sweet chin music, and people riffed off that for a while. Shawn is now retired, so there you have it. Hey, you got any questions or concerns? Email them to wrestlingwithpoetry@gmail.com, and I will address your question and concerns. Events. Friday, August 24th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. There is an open mic at Satellite Records here in Kalamazoo, 808 Southwest Nedge Avenue, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49008. Wrestling. Independence Pro Wrestling presents Off the Chain, live pro wrestling in Lansing, Michigan, not Kalamazoo, Lansing. That will be at the Royal Scott Bowl, 4722 West Grand River Avenue, Lansing, Michigan. That will be August 26th, a Saturday, from 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. And those are our events. Remember, if you got a question, email wrestlingwithpoetry@gmail.com. Thank you, Ian, for sharing your beautiful work. And thank you all for listening. I hope you have a great week.